So welcome everybody to this week's episode of This Week on LinkedIn, the RevOps podcast. Not This Week on LinkedIn. Kind of what we're doing though. It is the RevOps podcast, but this week we're going to be talking a lot about LinkedIn. And so we have a bit of a change in format. As usual, Brandon Redlinger is here. Go ahead and say Brandon.
Hey.
And he's always here, but you rarely hear from him. We've invited Alec to join us today as a full guest, not just a pop in, not just a quick hit. Alec is a guest. He's here. Go ahead and say hi, Alec.
Hey guys.
And we've officially kicked Jonathan off this one
for this week. We're TBD. We're trying new formats. Anyway,
you could pretend he's still here and just not talking.
If somebody just gives us like a here and there, like people will think Jonathan's on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. No different.
But inviting Alec in because he is very active on LinkedIn, has a lot of recent LinkedIn success and aggravating people, which we will talk about, as well as sort of encouraged and taught me at least how to do LinkedIn. Which is that how you say it, Alec? Am I doing LinkedIn?
I guess you're doing LinkedIn. I definitely advocate
because otherwise, it's not. You can't I'm not LinkedIning. Right?
Yeah, there's no Instagramming equivalent.
Right. So I think you're doing LinkedIn. So anyways, one of the reasons I want to talk about this is because we think about revenue operations. We're talking about aligning teams, right? It's actually really important to have an entire business aligned around a LinkedIn strategy that is allowing you to generate a lot of organic social, as well as to support all of your outbound, cold inbound. All of those efforts are going to be supported by a good and well built out LinkedIn strategy for your entire company. And a lot of companies don't do this at all, which is very, very a huge miss for your entire revenue operation, including top down SDRs, sellers, all the way up to CEOs, right? So let's start there. Why should people post on LinkedIn? Why is it important, right? Who wants to go? Who wants to hit me with it?
Alec, go for it.
I'll go. There's a lot of reasons it's important. General brand building for either a company or an individual, whether that's an individual trying to get, further in their career or just to sell stuff. There is obviously an advantage to building a brand, or we used to call it a name for yourself. I know some people hate that word brand. Or at least
I think of a reputation, right? It's
reputation. Sure.
Different word.
Exactly.
This is not the nomenclature podcast, y'all.
Hey, semantics matter.
Yeah, but it's important. I mean, just think about how expensive LinkedIn is a channel for kind of paid acquisition or paid anything. It's highly expensive. You spend a ton of money. So, they're still really, really pushing, kind of the LinkedIn powers that be to get more creators on the platform. That is, people creating user generated content, primarily around their profession. It is a business platform after all, try to avoid some of the politics and so forth. But I think it's a huge opportunity. It's only going to get bigger, honestly. It's in its infancy.
Yeah, I think the companies that do it right, they let their employees build their own brand. They give them some guide rails, right? But at the same time, they can be building both their brand and the company's brand. So that there are a few companies out there that do it well, like Gravy, like Refined Labs, some of those guys, where there are employees out there saying smart things, and then they do have the company branded background, the company banner, and then over time, you get to realize that all these people saying smart things about marketing and marketing agencies work at Refined Labs. It builds this brand halo effect, and everyone's like, oh, maybe I should go follow Refined Labs. And then that drives their Refined Lab LinkedIn strategy.
It's a credibility builder. There's the only thing I want to say about that is it didn't happen by accident. Refined Labs set out to do that very strategically and very well, obviously, to Chris Walker.
And it's worth caveating this entire conversation with, I would call our at revenue.io strategy on LinkedIn mildly okay, right? I don't think
Agreed.
I don't think it's good. It's certainly not Refined Labs by any means or way, shape, or form, right? And we are in our infancy of doing this, and one of the reasons we're talking about it is because we've been talking about a lot of this internally, and we need to do a lot better, and we're going to enforce this across the board. We did a whole episode on why it's important.
It's a dangerous word, though, by the way.
What's that?
Enforce versus
enforce. It is
versus when it comes to this stuff instead of encourage, I guess. I don't know. I guess we haven't figured it out
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. We did a whole episode on this. One of you was kind enough to actually look up the date of that episode, September 8th, 2021. It's called Social Selling, Be Responsible for the Dopamine Hit. What a nerd. I can't believe you looked that up. I could have just back referenced it like we always do. Like, yeah, there was an episode. I think it was like the 6th one or something, right? Like, it's the typical way to reference.
It doesn't have episode numbers anymore. It's harder to reference.
But let's start there then. To your point, Alec. Yes. How do you get your employees to post?
I mean, I think there's a lot of wrong ways to do it, but we'll start with the right ways. I think it starts at the top. You can't get people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. There seems to be an incredible amount of energy invested into figuring out incentive structures, whether it be gift cards or whatever, to try to get people to do things, right? Like, oh, if we do this, let's gamify it, or let's this, or that. To me, that just like screams that there's like a shortcoming in vision. Like, there needs to be a much broader vision for why you are doing this and how it aligns to your company goals. It's not just a post for the sake of posting. Like, there's serious business value in getting your team out in front, not just communicating their message, your company's message, but building up themselves as just like incredibly smart people that you want to work with, that you want to hear from. So that when they do call or they do email or they do see your company's name in the LinkedIn DMs or whatever, that they pay attention. You know, it's not, there's a reason that if Refine Labs posts something, I'm curious what it's going to be, because they got at least 10 smart people there that are posting regularly and communicating that they know what they're talking about.
But I think to your point, Alec, it's building a culture, right?
Sure.
I think having a spiff contest or whatever, that has nothing to do with culture. You're just training people to post when you want them to post, not to actually post because they want to post themselves, right? It's an exterior motivation as opposed to an intrinsic motivation, right?
And it's short-lived, as I think we talked about. Like, it may work for like a very little, a campaign or whatever.
As long as you're doing the spiff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of. I think that's true. I think there'll be people that do it because of a spiff, but they like the dopamine hit. They find out that they like the dopamine hit, and they stick with it a little bit afterwards. Sure. I think a lot of people will fall off, but I do think there's probably some subset of the people that do it that are like, you know what, I like seeing that I got 60 likes on that post.
Oh, and I want totally. We're trying to get you hooked. Like, the goal should be to get your people hooked on that dopamine hit, as we talk about. Free samples.
I give you 3 months of free samples, but spiff. Like, you might, a handful of people are hooked on that, right? And so I do think, like, I hear what you guys are saying. I don't disagree entirely, but I do disagree entirely, actually, because I think that there is some value in it to encourage people to do it, especially if you're trying to encourage sellers, because sellers are very often money motivated, right?
I think there is value in doing it, but that should not be the strategy.
Totally agree. I think what you're driving towards is, and this is the thing I agree with the most, is that absent like a formulated company plan and value, and here's what we're going to do, and having that clearly communicated to people, and like, here's our sort of what we're working towards and driving towards with our strategy as a whole. Absent having that and clearly communicating it to people, you're going to have a much harder time getting people to post, especially over longer periods of time. Because one of the things that keeps people from posting is, I don't want to post something that misaligns to what my company wants, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to like put my foot in my mouth.
Or I think the more classic one, and I love being able to cut you off, which is great, is that you're afraid that it reflects poorly on you because you're spending too much time on LinkedIn, and that communicates to your company internally that, like, oh, are they looking for another job? Are they not hitting their activity numbers because all they're doing is posting on LinkedIn all day? Like, that's where that kind of alignment needs to come in. That's like, no, we know there's value here. Like, we see you and we encourage you. We're not monitoring you.
Yeah. And then also back to the leadership by example, right? Like, if I'm posting consistently all the time, doing a bunch of stuff, recording a podcast, doing speaking engagements, doing all these things, there's no chance my team goes and does that and doesn't do it because they're worried that I'd be mad at them about it, right? Like, they know that I'm spending the time doing it because I think it's valuable for the business. Of course, I believe that's true for them.
They can't justify, well, I don't have time. It's like, well, Jordan has time. Like, Jordan's a very busy guy. Jordan's a very busy guy. If he can make time.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. All right. So let's talk about then. So internal training, we've kind of talked about that too. And by the way, I think that sort of like communicating the entire strategy, the whole business's approach to it, the desire for the business to have this, very, very important. But then also training how to freaking do it, right?
How to do it, yes.
Because it is a different beast. Let's talk about that a little bit. Because, man, like, if you just let people go like, hey, we want everybody to post on LinkedIn and these are the topics, like, most of it won't be successful. It won't really align well to the way LinkedIn wants to do this. People won't know how to maximize their reach because nobody's going to tell them how to do it. And so talk about that. What are some things you would train on?
Well, I think part of it is like a fine balance where you want to give them the tools to do it right. But also step one, more than anything, is just start doing it. Like, you have to post. Like, don't worry about what's happening. Just do it. Build the muscle. Post. Like, I heard a good example recently of someone who's like, we teach people to go comment for 30 days because it kind of like teaches you to like engage with the posts and how people are framing stuff and whatever before you even ask anyone to kind of post. But getting back to your question, I do think, part of it starts with, being an active consumer of content on LinkedIn in a way that's valuable, that's not turning it into kind of, I don't know, doom scrolling or something on Facebook where you're just consuming stuff that pisses you off. Like, you need to be able to curate your feed a little bit to see who are the good people, who is saying stuff that's interesting. Oh, I like what they're saying. Like, how are they saying it? Which I think all plays into, like, especially for salespeople, like, they're all, writing is so important for their craft these days, with email and DMs and whatever being, the primary source, if not, besides cold calling and stuff. That they're already pretty sharp writers and they know how to get people's attention. Like, they've been trained like pretty heavily to like, here's how you write a hook in your email and get right to the value and whatever. It's like, it. Like, I guess that's one of the things I'm trying to like, so much of it they know already. It's just not framed the same way.
Yeah. It's very similar to sending a cold email in a lot of ways, totally. Right? Like, the way you write that, it's not that different. By the way, one thing you said there is like, go comment on posts. My pro tip for that, and this has worked really well for me in growing my reach, is I comment on posts that the content is engaging to me because it's stuff that I'm interested, right? Which is also the sort of thing that I post. The posts I'm commenting on are often pretty well aligned to what I post. When you go to comment on a post and you see 48 other people that commented on it, connect with those people. Exactly. They're probably posting content that's helpful. They're also probably really going to like your content if you're posting something similar. And so it's a really good way to like find your people, right? It's a really easy way to do that. Find the people you like to follow, connect with their connections, connect with who's commenting, comment on it. People will send you connections, right?
Totally.
Good way to build a network.
Even the people that you would think are like more established, maybe they've written a few books or there's a name you recognize and whatever. Like, this is LinkedIn, let's call it 3.0. They're still figuring it out too. Like, you're not behind, you know what I mean? Like, no. It used to be LinkedIn, you connected with folks that like you met at a conference and like you would ignore everyone else. And now it's just like connect with as many people as possible, grow your network, see what's going on, see what people are talking about.
Right. And you can do it really fast.
So
like, it is incredible. I mean, I will candidly put these metrics out there for the world to know. 2 years ago, when I didn't really use LinkedIn very much, and I was that person that like, if somebody sent me a connection request, I reviewed them once a month and maybe posted 4 times that year. I had 14,000 views of my content 2 years ago. So that's 2020. Last year, I broke 650,000. 1 year later.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Like, that is and those numbers aren't that impressive compared to people who've been doing it for 5 years.
Oh, but give me a sense of how much time you put into that. It's not like you're sitting there writing every day.
No, God, no. I have 15 minutes blocked off 2 times a week. Exactly. Like, it's like, and I quick throw, like, whatever I'm working on, right? Because I post about what I do. And so whatever I'm working on is top of mind for me. I'm thinking through how to solve problems and do those things. As I'm doing it, I'm like, this will make a good LinkedIn post. Quickly format that, put it in. Half the time I go to an Asana card that I'm working off, or Asana project. I'm like, this is my Asana project right now. This is the thing that's really important to me. Here's the 4 bullets from this that I could put on LinkedIn. Like,
and that's the biggest thing that people always tell me gets in the way of them posting is they don't know what to actually post about.
Right, what you're working about. Like, you're right about what you're working on.
I mean, that's how we actually come up with content for podcasts, right?
Yeah, we were having this conversation internally yesterday. Yeah, like, but it's top of mind. It's fresh. You spent time thinking about it. You're going to be ready for it, right? Like, it's easy.
Yeah, I've got a running list that is in my Apple Notes, whether it's I pull it up on my computer or my phone, and it's just ideas for posts, and it could be coming from another podcast that I was listening to. It could be coming from a comment on one of my posts. It could be me commenting on someone else's post, a blog post, like in a meeting, whatever.
I sort of assumed for some reason that I knew you had a list somewhere. I just kind of assumed it was in like a diary that had like sequence food on the front and the back, and like Brandon, and it was just labeled like Brandon's thoughts with a butterfly. And, like,
it says return to Mr. Redlinger phone number.
If it's okay.
Phone number is still his mom's phone number, just in case.
Landline, exactly.
Yeah. Do not open, it's written somewhere on it. All right, anyways, sorry.
I just want to point, you nailed it. Like, you're doing it because people are excited and they want to know how companies work, how your job works. How does the director of revenue operations, what does he do on a daily basis, and how is he thinking and whatever? Jordan's just giving you like a peek behind the window. He's not sitting down to write great LinkedIn posts. He's documenting what he's doing. He's reporting on, problems he's solving in his day to day, which are all things we do every day.
And the inverse, the other piece of that, like this is the back half that you don't think about. First, it's a good way to like actually show value to people, right? Like, because if I'm working on it, other people that are like me are probably working on it. It could be helpful to them. Also, not infrequently, and in most posts, when I say, here's what I'm working on, basically, people will post things on there that I'm like, oh shit, that's a good idea. I'm going to incorporate that. It helps me do better in my job. Like, because it is basically crowdsourcing opinions on what I'm doing. Right. And that's awesome. That's a powerful thing. Right. Yeah. Like, oh great. Like that was a hell of a comment. Like Eddie Reynolds comments on my stuff all the time. He's every time I'm like, oh shit, that's smart. Like that is such a good point. I need to incorporate that in what I'm doing. And it's so helpful to me.
I think the writing too is like I don't know. There's something that, I don't remember. Maybe it's Andy who's always telling me. It's like, it really forces you to like, what do you think? Like, why do you think why are you solving this problem this way? Like, you have to write it out a little bit and like, see if it makes sense. And it gives you a little extra, a little extra insight. I think could really solidify your thinking and why you think certain ways and so forth. That's more about writing in general than LinkedIn. But
yeah, totally. So I mean, those are like some easy things, right? Like write about what you're doing, connect with people that are commenting on posts that are similar. Go comment. What are maybe like one or two more easy best practices for people listening or thinking about getting started on LinkedIn?
I always love to tell people, answer questions that you're getting the most from prospects or customers. I think that's a very easy one, and you can actually get ahead of some objections that might come up later on in a sales cycle or something like that. I tell people, kind of like we said, document a process, document something that works well, observe trends that are happening out in your industry, take sides in a debate. Is there a debate out there? But like that actually works really well because you get other people now commenting, which it's going to spread into their networks. Ask a question out there, celebrate a success, celebrate a failure. Celebrating failures actually works really well on LinkedIn. And it goes back to what we talk about frequently on the podcast, is like being real, being normal, being human.
Authenticity.
Right?
Super important.
Yeah.
And joke around, have some fun with it. If you ever read the comments on one of my posts, it's mostly people like just skewering each other, and I love it. Like it's the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Another more advanced thing I like to think about, at least for salespeople, because that's who I would like to focus on getting more on LinkedIn, is like use it as a testing ground for your kind of writing of emails or whatever. It's like an immediate response. Like if you write something on LinkedIn and no one responds to it, maybe that message is not going to work in the email, but you write a LinkedIn post and the hook is super solid and everyone's like liking. You're like, maybe copy and paste that into your email and see if that works that way as well.
I would even take it so far as if I'm an SDR and I'm playing around with, hey, this is going to be the first email in my go-to cadence. I'd take a picture, a screenshot of that, upload it and say, hey, everybody, can I get your feedback on this?
Beautiful.
You know how many SDR managers, SDRs in the world are going to give you like immediate feedback and like, hey, go read this book. And it's going to be so valuable and you're establishing yourself as a call. Like it's something so simple as that, right? Like it doesn't have to be more complex than that.
If you take that mindset to LinkedIn, it changes everything completely, right? So many people are like, I don't want to post because it has to be the perfect thing to say, which holds them back from posting. If you take that mindset of, I'm actually going to use this as a testing ground, see what works, see what doesn't, like it changes it completely for you.
I don't know if this makes it better, easier, or better. I don't know if this is a selling point, but no one's going to remember. Like you can post, you look, there are so many posts and the way the algorithm works and the way whatever, it's like, even you look at some of the biggest names you can follow on LinkedIn, they repeat their content every 4 months and do perfectly fine with it because,
Yeah, I was super curious about that. So I actually took a post that I made like 8 months ago and straight up reposted it. And the same people that commented on it the first time commented on it the second time. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm never doing it again because I felt terrible. I felt really dishonest, but I was actually really curious. Like, do people remember this stuff or not?
I don't see it as dishonest because if you can take a little new frame on it, you've also most likely grown your audience, an exponential amount in the last 8 months. And it's like an asset that you're building for yourself where it's like, okay, you write for a year. I know that seems daunting, but next year you've already got a quarter of your year already written because you can redo your best posts. You can update them. You can get them updated for 2023 and whatever. And no one's going to be like, oh, occasionally, I'll get someone who's like, didn't you post this like 4 months ago? But it's worth it in my opinion.
I'm avoiding it. I felt sick to my stomach. I totally get it. I think, but I was like, oh man, like I'm trying to like be authentic on here. And I just, The only thing I would caveat that is I have looked through my old posts and seen like, oh, I posted that a year ago. That was really dumb. Like I need to post a correction to that. Like I have learned differently since then, which by the way, own that shit. Go on LinkedIn and say, a year ago I said this. I was wrong. Let me explain.
People love that.
Yeah.
People love that.
And you should, because somebody might be doing what you advised them to do a year ago. You don't want them to make that mistake. How much time do you guys commit a week to doing it?
I'm a terrible example, but
you do a lot of posting for other people too. So
yeah. So don't use me as an example, but I mean, it depends what you're doing. Like there's different levels. If you're a salesperson just getting started, once a week, 15 minutes, like it's nothing. Add it into your daily routine. Hey, a good problem you might have is you're like, I need more time. So many people are responding to my comments. Like that's okay. But I mean, if you're getting up and you want to build like a serious audience, it's the more the merrier. Like it is hard to keep up, but it is a platform that demands content. It's like 1 to 2% of people on LinkedIn create content.
Yeah, it's 2% create 98% of the content.
Percent of the content, right? Exactly.
Yeah, which is crazy.
You look at how they're hiring too, which is I think maybe 200 people LinkedIn has hired to jumpstart their creator programs. You can see where it's going. You can see they want more content. You can see they're going to build the tools to support you and stuff. So I don't know. Again, it just feels very early to me.
Totally agree. Brandon, how much time do you spend? Alec didn't answer the question at all. But
he didn't at all.
Hours.
Useless.
We'll let you answer.
Yeah, so I do post daily. For the most part, daily. Every once in a while, I might
years, right?
You've done that. You post on weekends too?
I don't. Not on weekends.
That's some sociopath stuff to post daily on LinkedIn. That's drawing the line for me. Weekends are weekends. I'm not posting on LinkedIn anyway.
Yeah, no.
You can schedule it out. By the way, you don't have to post it on the weekend.
Yeah, that feels inauthentic to me. I won't do it. Can't have it.
I don't schedule either. I don't schedule either. But every morning. I used to actually do it at night and then queue it up at night. And then I wake up and I post it first thing in the morning. But I've actually found that first, go engage other people's content. And then you post yours, you'll get better engagement. But anyway, I spend 10 to 15 minutes in the morning crafting my post. So I pull up my list on Apple Notes. I scroll through. I pick something that I feel like expanding on. I take 5-10 minutes to actually write it out. And then I'll post it. So about 10-15 in the morning. And then when I'm on my lunch break, when I have a break between meetings, I'll just pop on my phone and look at comments, try to reply, that sort of thing. So I do think you should be replying to your comments. That is another best practice to help extend your reach. But don't overthink that either, right? It's like,
raised hand emoji is a great response.
Yeah, exactly. The clapping emoji, that totally works.
Yeah.
You just want to acknowledge them. They put in the effort to respond, and it's like, hey, I see you. Thanks. I'll catch you on the next one or whatever. I mean, that's all it takes.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably in the 3 posts a week bucket, maybe 4, but two of mine are really typically, something aligned to like trying to help the company out. Like here's an event I'm speaking about that I'm promoting or something like that, which is super easy because the event you're speaking at will send you like, here's a graphic and a sample post.
here's the landing page. Yeah.
Let me just link that, good to go, which also helps, the company and myself. And then the other ones for me, it's, I wake up, I'm online around 8 a.m. every day. I try not to be earlier than that for my own mental health. But around from 8 to 8:30, I spend my time sort of organizing my day for myself and my teams, like going through everything, make sure everybody's set up to have a good day. And during that process, basically, I find the thing that I'm going to post about. So by like 8:15, as I'm going through, like, oh, that's the thing I should talk about, right? Quick draft it on the side, pop it online, send 50 connection requests, back to work. Maybe 15 minutes total. And then to your point, I'll go through and respond to comments, try to be pretty timely about it throughout the day, but otherwise,
2 minutes here, 2 minutes
and
there.
And that seems totally reasonable. Like Jordan is not going for, at least not yet, to be Mr. Influencer, Mr. Thought Leader. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to whatever, try to build an audience and whatever. He's just trying to provide value, and he does it. That's a really great routine. I didn't know that's what it was.
Yeah, super easy. I would recommend it for everybody. I don't even have to think about it, realistically, most of the time. It does become a muscle, right? Like, it's just like, boom, done. Yeah. It's also, it used to be like, when people would message like, hey, like, I really like your content. It was like a really point of pride because I worked really hard at it. And now I'm like, cool, I didn't really do anything. Like, I like just wrote about what I was doing. Like I'm glad that it actually makes me really happy because I'm glad that it's helpful to people, and that's the whole goal. But it's sort of funny because the more and more I've exercised that muscle, the less I'm super proud.
To me, it just said there's a huge demand for high quality content. Like whether it takes you 5 minutes or 15 or 45 or whatever, just like there's not.
This is a backhanded way of saying people like yours because it's just like the only posts available.
The bar's really low and you're exceeding it.
Yeah. Got it.
Low bar.
Cool. Any other like last pro tips before we slide into the last thing?
I was going to go with pro tips, more advanced stuff. Like make sure you're connected with your competition. Like if you're going after a deal and you're fighting over, and you know who else you're kind of fighting against, connect with them because you'll get a sense of who they're interacting with. Hey, are they commenting on the VP's post? Are they liking this? Are they liking that? It's, it's subtle and it's over time, but it does give you a little bit more insight.
Nice. That is a pro tip. It is a pro tip that I bet 99% of sellers are not doing.
They are not.
Brandon, any other last thoughts?
A few last thoughts. So I do think, people hopefully by now know to use hashtags. LinkedIn did actually come out saying that 3 to 5 is the best. The order of the hashtags matter too. So put the hashtag with the biggest following first. And all you have to do is go into the search bar, type in hashtag sales development, whatever, click on those, and it'll tell you how many people are following that hashtag. So the order of the hashtags matter too. Do 3 to 5. And it doesn't matter where on the post, as long as the first hashtag that you list is has the biggest following.
I just learned that recently too, and I don't know why, but that seems to be correct.
It's really curious to me because I don't hashtag most of my content, to be honest, and just because I forget most of the time. I'm not on Twitter. I don't really use hashtags. I'm older than that group, I guess. I don't know. But I often don't, and I never really see any like lapse in my engagement, I guess. Like maybe I don't
think it's definitely good when you're starting out, right? Like you don't have a lot of followers, your content might not be exposed to any people, like, but once you get 500 or so people that are looking for your content, like, it's gravy. It's icing on the cake. You don't necessarily need it.
Yeah, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think it's one of those things that will definitely help because I've had like some of my best posts, my most engaged posts, I don't put hashtags on just because like I'm so passionate about what I'm saying. I just kind of forget to put a hashtag on it.
Content rules the day, right?
100%.
100%.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm gonna quick summary. So if you're a company and you're not doing this, where to start is basically you got to have a company strategy. You've got to define your approach, have a company
from
the top, train the team on that, lead by example. So your executives, your leadership team has to be posting in a way that aligns back to the strategy that you've agreed is the strategy, right? All of that has to be true. Then you got to train the team on how to do it and empower them to do it. I would recommend sample posts, right? Like give them, first 30 days, here's a bunch of posts. You could just basically copy and paste these out of this spreadsheet into your LinkedIn and good to go, right? Like, make it super, super easy for people and give them the best practice in the training to do that. But easiest way to get started. Lead by example, get that started. Anything else you guys want to add for that?
Well, I'm not going to argue. We're getting late in the episode, so I'm not going to argue with you about the copying and pasting of posts from a document into the whatever. But
what I was thinking is more like I'm going to get my team to write 50 posts that are like pertinent to sales. And we're not having each salesperson post each of them. So there's not 40 versions of that post out in the world. Like somebody can grab the one they want and then it's off the board for everybody else, right? Like that sort of thing. Because that way it's an easy way to give a bunch. And let's be honest, some people could print quick wins. And everybody gets like 2 easy wins, right? And then they're on their way.
100%. Only one thing I think we haven't touched on is like, it has to be explained why it is so valuable to you, the individual. And I don't mean I don't mean you as an employee of X company. I mean you, the professional who's most likely going to have other jobs in the future, who is most likely going to try to, rise in the ranks of your career and whatever. Like, you start getting noticed and you start building a reputation for yourself, especially in our digital world where you can't go to the conferences and whatever, on LinkedIn. And you
build it up and you keep it growing, and you get to host a podcast like this and get paid $0 for it. You know how valuable it is. That's it, baby. No, I'm just
living the dream.
You're totally right. But for me, you build that profile, and then you get to host this for free.
But for you employers that are worried about that, it accrues to you in the meantime. As long as they're employed with you, all that value that they built up, it accrues to your brand, like a Sarah Brazier or whatever.
Yeah, totally agree. Cool. All right. Well, I know we were trying to keep this a quick hitter, so I want to segue us into the last thing, which is, of course, this week on LinkedIn, which is very pertinent. I'm actually not going to ask a question this week. I want to talk about something else, which is this week on LinkedIn, Alec pissed a lot of people off. That popped up on my phone last night, and I read it, and then I was like, oh no, this was misconstrued for sure. Scrolled into the comments and just saw all of the rage coming out.
Here's the formula for pissing people off on LinkedIn. It's a 2-step formula.
First tell the story.
I saw a post by Kyle Coleman, who's like a big influencer, and I really like his stuff. I'll follow him. He's great. He's totally great. But he's huge. He gets thousands of likes or whatever. And you know that resharing doesn't really work on LinkedIn. So I just screenshotted his post and like gave my 2 cents on it. His post was about how, I don't want to misconstrue it, but it was about how the nicest thing you can do for SDRs basically is like, reply. Don't ignore them. Don't just say, ghost them. Reply, and if you have the time, whatever, leave some feedback. Totally reasonable, and a nice thing to do. The point I was trying to make is that I don't think that we can expect the average B2B buyer to do that, or that it is necessarily good that they even feel they should or have to be doing that from the perspective of the buying experience, right? I may have used some more insightful language and been a little more clear about that. But yeah, I do think it's a problem, and it is a sales tech issue. There's no wrong problem with sales tech, but it has proliferated and has caused some problems. Whereas like even someone like me who has no budget or no power, literally no power whatsoever, when this organization gets like 20 of these a day that get my name wrong or I'm unpersonalized or whatever. So I took a little issue with like, well, I don't think it's rude if I don't respond to them. Like, you don't even know who I am. Like, you don't get my name right or whatever. That being said, I was not trying to attack or come for Mr. Coleman there.
Well, it was really the SDRs. People were like,
"Oh, they're very.
Why are you such an asshole to SDRs, man?" I was like, "Oh my God, I don't think SDRs are even emailing Alec. Like, I don't think he is. This is just
no, they do, but they're not." Like, I'm very low on the totem pole. I don't think much effort goes into it, Yeah. Whereas, like, if they're trying to sell a Jordan something or a Brandon something, who I might have more a director level or whatever, they're going to put a little more personalization into it.
And I will say I don't disagree with your point, because I get 20 of those messages a day, and there was a time when I used to like spend some time to be like, hey, like this message wasn't quite on par. Like, let me like quick coaching for you, right? But it takes me 4 minutes. I get 20 messages a day. I'm not going to spend 80 minutes every day doing that. That's shifting the impetus on the buyer, which is not good.
That was my whole point. My whole point was,
and
I thought sorry, didn't mean to cut you.
No. And so then, as it got more, I actually tried what Kyle recommended in his post, which is I would just respond like, hey, no thanks. Right. Like, just to be polite, stop calling me, stop emailing me. Like, I'm going to help you out. Sometimes a no is better than a maybe, right? Or a no is better than no.
No's the second best answer,
right? Because it is a answer. And so I would do that, and I had the entirely opposite experience of Kyle, which he was like, yeah, most of the time when I do that, they're like, yeah, great, thanks for letting me know, and they move on. I did not have that experience. I get like cold calls and emails like, hey, you said no, I want to like dig into that. Like, see why you're not interested. And like, I get it, you're trying to objection handle, but like, I was trying to be polite. And now I feel like I'm being harassed more, and so now I'm just not going to respond. And that's like a part of the sales process that's broken, because I manage our SDRs. I wish everybody had time to say no thanks, right? And I wish everybody had time to coach them on a bad email, because that would be great. And I still want to try and do it. But then when somebody says no thanks, stop pursuing them, right? Like, listen to the thing. And then, by the way, I coach our SDRs on that. If somebody says like, hey, no thanks, not interested, cool. They're DQ'd. We're not talking to them ever again. We'll take them out of our ad spend. We take them out of our outreach. Like, why we keep pursuing that person? They're not interested. They've told us. We've clarified that. Good job.
I have seen that a lot more recently. So I am one who does reply to a lot that just says, no, we're not interested in it this time. I have seen more people go, but did you really take a look at our software? But, well, why don't you want a free trial?
Yeah.
So with those people on LinkedIn, I immediately remove them. Email, I hit spam.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're continuing to push where I clearly said no, yeah, that's a problem. But it does seem like it happens more recently. I also, on the other side of that, when someone does reach out with a very thoughtful email and it's not a fit, I do take the time to say, I appreciate the personalized email.
Yes.
You're doing a great job out there. Are you looking for a new job? Come work with us.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I try to poach those people all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Someone dug up that I played college lacrosse. I was like, how did you find that information? Like, and it was very nice. Like, this is great. I have absolutely no need for what you're selling, but I really appreciate the craft.
Yeah, and by the way, let me know if I can introduce you to anybody in my network or something like that. Like, now we're friends because you've impressed me, right? So, Alec, what's the formula for pissing people off on LinkedIn? By the way, was this your most liked?
Yeah, by far, and which just shows you. Yeah, it's definitely going the way of Twitter, where the more angry you get people, the more engagement you're going to get. But the two-step formula is very simple. One, be perceived to say something negative about Kyle. He's like a god on that platform. About that platform, he does provide tremendous value to SDRs on a regular basis and is super patient. And it's a very positive attitude. So people have a lot of defenders.
So go after someone with a loyal following.
Right. Yeah. Also, SDRs are wildly engaging on LinkedIn, and so
that's number two. That's number two. Number two, say anything that could be construed as negative about SDRs, and you are in for a long night.
It's true. I almost didn't have you on the podcast today because I know
this is bad for the brand.
Some of them might be upset, like a little bit of a conflict of interest. I was like, I might have to have a team meeting where, like, listen, guys, I know you don't like him, but
people were calling. I was like, they're calling me People were calling me horrible. I was like, oh my god,
I know, it was crazy. I opened it last night. And I literally chuckled to myself and then closed my phone. I was like, it's amazing.
It was the most fun I had because it's social media. People, people are going to misread what you say. They're going to read it the most uncharitably possible, or you're going to say something super unclear and lack context and whatever.
The piece about it that was really interesting, because nothing you said was wrong, and that was essentially proven by the fact that Kyle commented on your post. It was like basically you guys had like a nice conversation about the clarification being made, and like Kyle wasn't angry at all.
No,
like, you had a little back and forth on
cordial
there, like,
conversation,
right? Like that's what
LinkedIn's for.
People are like attacking you for attacking Kyle. Kyle didn't feel attacked, so it is what it is.
That's great.
Anyways, piss people off, you get great engagement. Pro tip.
100%.
Pro tip.
Pick an. I mean, I don't know if we've talked about this here, but if you want to pick a key to like really lighting a fire under your engagement, pick an enemy. And I'm not using my thing as an example, but pick an enemy. It can be hustle culture. It could be unpersonalized emails. It could be
Jonathan Stevens.
Jonathan Stevens. It can be anything. It can be recruiters or people not putting salaries and job postings or whatever. But just like pick a topic that you're really passionate about and
have an opinion.
Dan Price is the example of that, right? That guy's been
he is on brand.
That is salaries for like 7 years. And still get on. Exactly. I'm like, dude. I get it. You think every employee should be paid the same as the CEO. I get it. Like, it's great, but you've been sending that post out for 7 years.
That is so funny. He is the perfect example of been saying the exact same thing 5-6 times a week for 5 years, and it still works.
It
panders
does.
To the
and
audience.
He's probably a wonderful human being, and it actually probably did help move the needle for a lot of people. So he's probably done a lot of good because of the things.
I think
he's done.
He does probably.
Yeah, like I think it's all been very impactful. It's just really funny. Every time I'm seeing it, I'm like, I don't even have to read it. I know what Dan's writing about. Like,
I know what he's going to say.
Yeah, like good to go.
Hey, that is called message discipline, though. That is impressive.
Right, it really is. Cool. All right. Well, that's it. I think this was awesome. Everybody who listened, if you enjoyed this episode, give us a 5-star on wherever you're listening. I don't know all the places I allow 5 stars or what that looks like, but Apple's most important. So go listen to it.
Give us the most.
Give us the most of whatever they allow. If it's 10 stars, don't give us 5, please. But shoot us your messages for this week on LinkedIn. Go ahead and follow all 3 of us. I could say that this week because Alec is now an influencer, and don't hate on his post. Go like his post so people stop hating him. And we will see everybody next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.